Good evening. This work session of the ISD 279 School Board is being held in the forum room of the Educational Service Center on Tuesday, August 19, 2025. The work session is being audio recorded. The recording will be made available on the district website within 2 business days after the work session is ended. With regard to the audio recording, our communication staff has asked that we share a friendly reminder that side conversations during the work session are picked up by the recorder and can affect sound quality. Also, conversations during transitions between agenda items are on the recording as well. The intent of the school board work session is to allow for school board discussion of topics. Work sessions do not include an opportunity for audience members to address the board. To acknowledge attendance this evening, I'll ask that all present at the table state their name, starting with the person to the left.
Keith Tate, school board member.
Erica Foster, school board member.
Ryan Severson Hall, Executive Director of Community Engagement.
Anthony Patterns, Executive Director of Technology.
Yvonne Schertz-Len, Executive Director of HR.
Steve Flisk, Assistant Superintendent for the elementary.
Matt Corswell, Security and Emergency Management Specialist.
Dave Mordock, Security and Emergency Management Assistant Director.
Troy Schreifels, Director of Transportation, Security and Emergency Management.
John Morissette, Executive Director of Finance and Operations.
Kay Blow, Executive Director of Community Relations.
Kelsey Dawson, school board member.
Sarah Mitchell, school board member.
Amy Moore, general counsel.
Kim Heil, superintendent.
Tanya Prince, school board member.
And I, Thomas Brooks, am school board member and present. The purpose of the school board work sessions is to build trust and teamwork to exchange information and, when applicable, to provide direction in order to facilitate efficient and effective decision-making at regular board meetings. Dr. Heil, will you please share your check-in?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Brooks, Chair Prince, and school board members. We're excited today that we will be going in depth on safety management in our district. We have several people speaking this evening, so we'll have in each section those that are leading that. So, John Morstead, if you want to introduce your group. Sure.
Thanks, Dr. Howell. Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, board members, appreciate you being here today. So I'm going to go real quick, just for the record, through who are the members of our Security and Emergency Management team. Again, we start with Director Troy Schreifels, Assistant Director Dave Mordock. You just got a chance to meet our Security and Emergency Management Specialist Matt Corswell. And then our newest member is Jody Schneider, who is the Security and Emergency Management Tech Support Specialist who just started with us in July. And so I'll turn it over to Troy and his team, and they're going to kind of walk you through the next steps of the security presentation.
Thanks, John. Good evening, Board Chair Prince, board members, and cabinet members and guests tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to provide a high-level presentation on the work Security and Emergency Management does daily to prioritize the safety and security of our students, our staff, our families, and our community. Our department aligns with the mission and strategic priorities to provide safe and welcoming spaces where our scholars can come to learn and feel safe. By the end of this presentation, you'll be informed about the 3 main components of school safety and how they work at OSSEO. Dave, did we present the pop quiz at the end too?
We did not.
Just wanted to make sure. Our department responsibilities. We have a lot on the plate. This is just a high-level piece of it. Our department's overall responsibilities are emergency response plans, drills and training, camera systems, card access systems, intrusion systems, two-way radios, Raptor visitor management systems, behavior threat assessments. You'll learn a little bit about that today. Our tip line, Stop It, our SRO program, and then site security audits. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave and Matt to share more information on the district security and emergency management components.
Thank you, Troy. Dr. Heil, Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, members of the board. I'm Dave Mordock, the Assistant Director of Security Management for the district. I'd like to start kind of just with the 3 components that we have here in OSSEO area schools when we think about our security and emergency management. It's our emergency plans, physical security, and people. Our emergency plans, we're going to have incidents in our schools. Things are going to happen, and when we do, we activate our emergency plans with our goal to ensure safety to staff, students, and visitors, and getting school back to normal operations as quickly as possible. Second is our physical security. You'll hear that term physical security several times tonight. Those are the tools we use to protect people and our facilities from a security incident. And last, but in my opinion the most important, are the people in our schools. These components are kind of intertwined with each other. They don't work independent of each other. Each component relies on the success of the other to ensure a holistic approach to security and emergency management in the district. So we'll start with our emergency plans. We have a comprehensive emergency operations plan that uses kind of an all-hazard approach in the district. And what that means with all hazards is that basically we take into account a wide range of possible threats and hazards. So, anywhere, and we look at what's probable and likely versus something that's unprobable. But, we want to basically, if something could occur in our schools, our plan is there to address it. In addition to our primary emergency operations plan, we also have several supporting annexes or mini plans that fall under emergency operation plan umbrella. Some examples of that are out of school time plans. So we have an emergency operations plan specific for like Kid Stop. So when we have Kid Stop programming before and after school. We have an emergency operations plan for our summer programming. Summer programming is very unique, as we may have 3 or 4 separate programs in one building with each kind of different leadership for that program. They operate at different times, different days of the week. So we have an emergency operation plan specific to that. We have emergency operation plans for our athletic activities. So if we have events at our stadiums or in our gymnasiums, we've developed emergency operation plans specific to that. Another one is reunification. Reunification is if we have an incident that occurs where we need to move students away from their school and then have a systematic process to get them back to their caregivers. We have a reunification plan for that. And the last one I'll mention is we also have a radiological emergency plan that not everybody knows about, or a REP plan. The district is part of the state's radiological emergency plan, and we have a partnership with the Monticello School District that if there is a nuclear power incident in Monticello, we partner with the Monticello School District to reunify their students. And that is a plan that is actually part of the state's Homeland Emergency Plan, so our radiological emergency plan. When we think about our emergency plan, and if we were to print up all the pages of it and put it in a big 3-ring binder, it would be several hundred pages. I would say kind of the face of our emergency response plan is actually what we call our standard response protocol. This is predominantly what we train staff on, students on. We even train today our transportation drivers. So if we have an emergency in our school, it's important for them to know our language and our words in our school. So we adopted the standard response protocol from the I Love You Guys Foundation last school year, and I would say it's the most widely used classroom emergency protocol in the United States. Many of our neighboring districts also use it, which we like because we think about there's been a time where people oh, we have a soft lockdown, we have a modified lockdown, oh, we're having a code red. This standardizes that language and makes it very simple. So if we have a substitute teacher that's working in Anoka Hennepin and they come to us, we're using the same protocol. If they're going to Brooklyn Center Schools, or I saw Wyzetta is now using the standard response protocol. It's just easy to understand, and language is pretty clear. So just briefly mention what each one of the 5 protocols are. The first one is hold in your classroom or wherever you are, and that's typically, a hold is typically used for like a medical emergency. We don't want an audience if a staff member or a student is injured or ill and we need to get an ambulance. So essentially what a hold is, we announce a hold, and we just want people to hold wherever they are, doing whatever they're doing. So if you're in your classroom, you're just going to continue learning. If you're outside at recess, you're going to be outside having fun at recess. You're going to have that extended thing, but we're not going to do class changes. We're not going to bring students kind of in. Just hold where you are, keep doing what you're doing for that hold. But typically used for us in a medical emergency. Next is secure. That's when there's an incident outside of our school. So that typically, we go into a secure typically for police activity that's around our school. We'll get notified of police activity, maybe in the neighborhood, or they're searching for someone. So when we have a secure, anybody that we have outside, so recess, physical education, we bring them in and we secure the school. So the only door that should be unlocked during the school day, during instructional time, is the main entrance. So we really should only have to worry about the main entrance. We lock that door. We send somebody around to make sure all the other doors are secure as well. And then no one is coming in or out until we get word from law enforcement that it's safe to allow people out. So if we have caregivers that are showing up to pick their student up for a dental appointment, we're not going to let that parent in, and we're not going to let that student out. We're going to tell them to please move away from the school, and we'll contact them when it's safe to come pick up their student. So that's secure. Next is lockdown. So that's the one where if we have a threat or concern inside the school, that's where learning does stop, and a lockdown, because in a secure, we continue to learn during the secure because it's safe in the building, but in a lockdown, it does disrupt the learning process. That's where staff and students will secure a location, turn off the lights, hide, stay quiet until that incident is over with. But that's typically when we just kind of have that threat or concern inside the building that's not weapons related. Next is evacuate. We evacuate for several different reasons. It could be the smoke alarm goes off, we could have a gas leak, but we basically need to leave the building, get out of the building, and wait for it to be cleared by the fire or police department. And the last is shelter, and we shelter for two reasons. One could be for severe weather, moving to our severe weather shelter locations, or if we have a hazardous material release, we just kind of determine the best place to shelter within our schools, and we have the ability to remotely turn off our HVAC system, so we're not bringing in outside air for that. So that's our standard response protocol that we have in our classrooms. This poster is posted in all of our classrooms, and then it's also on the back of all of our staff ID badges. So just kind of that memory of kind of if something occurs, seconds matter. So we want instantly, if okay, that's a secure, that's an outside event, what's my responsibility kind of thing. So lots of training on our SRP. Next, I want to talk about our building crisis response team. So when a school has an emergency, the people in the building are always going to be their own first responders. So each site in our district has a building crisis response team to lead them through that emergency. That's typically going to be made up of principals, assistant principals, and kind of their admin staff. Like I said, that kind of provides direction on what to do. Are we doing a secure? Are we doing an evacuation? You know, what are we doing? They're notifying the ESC as well for that. So we have, like I said, incident commanders at all of our sites. And then we have a kind of sister parallel crisis response team here at the ESC, so our district crisis response team, then that helps support a site that's having an emergency. So do they need help with communication? Do they need help from facilities? Do they need help from food and nutrition services? We're all there to support that site. We don't want them to feel like they're on an island, kind of by themselves when they have that. So we're here to kind of support it, that group when there's an emergency. But like I said, every group has kind of their own building crisis response team, and it follows the kind of the FEMA incident command system. That way, if our law enforcement partners show up, our police, EMS, fire show up, they're using the exact same structure, and we're speaking the same language. They have incident commanders, they have different operations, logistics, planning people, so we can coordinate our responses together in those events. Next, we'll talk about kind of the training and drills and exercises that we do. So by state statute, we're required to do 11 drills each school year. So those are 5 evacuation drills, 5 lockdown drills, and 1 severe weather drill that we space out throughout the school year. So those are our required drills. The good thing is when we look at our students and staff are well trained on these incidents. An incoming freshman to one of our high schools, if they've been with us since kindergarten, has done 45 lockdown drills just by the time they've gotten to their freshman year. So they're really well versed on kind of what the expectations are. Like I said, our staff are well versed, and so they do a really good job of kind of explaining the why. This is why we're doing it. Usually the drills start out at the beginning of the school year with a lot of, this is why we're doing this is the steps we're going to. Everybody knows it's coming in advance, so they can kind of talk about it. And then as we progress through the school year, less and less, because like I said, they're well trained on what they do. We also do additional training like tabletop exercises. So that's one of the big things that we did last school year. So a tabletop exercises is kind of a low stress where we kind of talk through an emergency incident. And we did that with every building crisis response team in the district. So Matt and I teamed up and we went out with the sites, so, gave some scenarios, talked about the different roles and said, let's talk through a scenario in a non-stressful situation. That way, that will help them in a real emergency say, we've talked about this, we've thought about this, we kind of know what to do, so we find those really, really beneficial. And we also did one as a kind of district leadership team. We also did a tabletop with Maple Grove PD's executive, police department's executive. So they brought in an outside facilitator, and it was nice they gave us a scenario, and it's kind of nice to see how Maple Grove PD would respond, what their priorities are, how we could support them, and kind of work together in an emergency situation, kind of building that partnership. Like I said, you never want to have those things where you're just making those connections in the moment of an emergency. So having those connections, and I feel very strong, and I know Troy's going to talk about our partnerships later on, that we have those already with our police departments that we work for. Next thing I want to talk about is our NASP Prepare model, which I'm pretty excited about. So this school year, the district is fully adopting the National Association of School Psychologists, NASP for short, their Prepare curriculum. This is a kind of a partnership that we've been working on the past couple of years between Security and Emergency Management and our Student Services Department. So Prepare stands for Prepare, Prevent any psychological trauma, reaffirm physical health, security, and safety, evaluate psychological trauma, provide interventions, and respond to psychological needs, and last, examine effectiveness and prevention of intervention efforts. So Prepare is evidence-based and trauma-informed training that's curriculum that's designed to equip staff, building crisis response teams for a real holistic 360 look at an emergency. So when, on the security and emergency management side, we may look at like, okay, we just had a secure and we did all the actions for a secure, but when we look at it under the Prepare curriculum, we're looking at it from, did we have any staff or students that were, that was traumatizing for? Do we need to have follow-up care for them? There's just a lot of great resources that we have for that. So like I said, it's not just the security aspect of it, it's the psychological aspect of an emergency that we have. And so we piloted the Prepare curriculum a couple of years ago. We fully adopted it this year. Our goal, there's two kind of components of it. Workshop 1, which is really kind of designed more on the kind of emergency operations plan, more of, I would say, Matt and I's area of things. Workshop 2 is a 2-day class that's really designed more for our district crisis support team members, so those that are kind of providing that kind of psychological first aid, so our social workers, counselors, school psychologists for that. And we actually have 7 Prepare trainers in the district, and I will tell you this with no hesitation, we have the largest contingent of prepared trainers in-house here in Osseo than anywhere else in the state. So Matt and I are Workshop 1 trainers, Jill and and a couple others are trained in Workshop 1 and 2, and then we have those that just work on Workshop 2. So our focus this year for Workshop 1 that Matt and I train is really on our building crisis response team and our incident commanders to know the Prepare model for an incident, and then Student Services is training over like 100 of their members on Workshop 2 on how to do that psychological first aid for that. So I feel really excited as we continue to grow our Prepare model here in Osseo. Next thing I'll touch on, something that's near and dear to my heart is our behavior threat assessment program. And I think about, when I think about this, is because it's something where we're helping students that really need have some needs and some deficits that we can really help with, and I think kind of make a difference in their lives. So beginning with the 2017-2018 school year, that's when we started training staff on our run, hide, bike protocol of what to do if an active shooter event occurred in one of our schools. So that's important to know what to do when something bad happens. But when we think about behavior threat assessment, that's the prevention mitigation piece. How can we even prevent and mitigate something like that from occurring to begin with? So here in the district, we follow the U.S. Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center's guidance for behavior threat assessments in school. And so we will initiate a behavior threat assessment if we have a student that is threatened serious bodily harm or death to another student or staff member, has brought a weapon to a school, has what we call a cluster of concerning behaviors. If there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of going on with that student, that maybe we need to provide some interventions for them, that's when we will basically have a threat assessment meeting. So the threat assessment meetings, they're multidisciplinary. They are facilitated by Matt or myself in security and emergency management, and then we'll have people that know the students. We'll have administrators, We'll have social workers, school psychologists. If there's students that are receiving special education services, I won't do one without somebody from the special education team that can be there to speak on behalf of services that we're receiving. And really what we're doing is what's our level of concern. It's not whether or not they made a risk, but do they pose a risk? And then what interventions can we put in place to help that student, not only help that student, but also make our school environment safe as well. So it's a best practice in K-12 education to have a behavior threat assessment. I feel very fortunate that we have a good, strong program here in Osseo and good teams to work with. And part of with behavior threat assessment is early intervention. We don't want to wait till things get bad before we address them. The earlier that we can start helping students and getting them help with the deficits they have, the better for all of us in those situations. Now I'll turn it over to Matt to talk about physical security.
Wonderful, thank you, Dave. Good evening, Superintendent Heil, Board Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, and the board members that are joining us here tonight. I'm here to talk about physical security in Osseo area schools. And when we're thinking of physical security, the first topic we're going to cover is single secure points of entry. Everyone, whether it's a parent or a visitor, is required to come through the main front doors of the school when class is in session. Once they enter the vestibule, they're going to use the intercom phone system and call into the main office, where our admin professionals then will verify who they are, why they're there, and if everything checks out, they'll be buzzed into the office. If it's something simple, like a parent dropping off a forgotten instrument or a student forgot their lunch, we prefer that they handle that in the vestibule when possible, in hopes that that helps limit access to the rest of the building and just supports the overall safety of the building. Once a visitor enters the office, they're going to check in using our Raptor Visitor Management System. They're going to present their ID, and the system's going to screen their ID against two things. The first thing is going to be the National Sex Offender Registry, and the second item is going to be a district-specific watch list, custom alert list. If we have concerns about a person, the district can put in a custom alert to notify the admin of that building and our district staff. If there is an alert, our staff are trained on how to respond appropriately and discreetly, part of those front office staff trainings that Dave and I give. Raptor also gives us live accountability lists, so if we have a visitor in our building and there's an emergency that happens, we know who's in our building during an emergency. Regarding staff, for staff we use a card access system on the majority of our exterior doors. This allows us to control who can enter, when they enter, and avoids the needs to issue physical keys to all of our staff members. This is important because if a key is lost, it can be very costly to rekey a school building. This card system significantly reduces that risk, but also improves the accountability of which staff members are entering specific doors. We've also installed panic fobs in key locations throughout our buildings. In an emergency, staff can press the fob to send a silent alert directly to 911, notifying local law enforcement of the emergency and the location, without drawing attention to the person signaling for the help. This allows for a discreet and immediate response during those incidents. We've also added lockdown buttons inside our buildings to enable fast internal response. A blue strobe light will activate inside and outside of the school. So the front office staff have a light that's kind of in the main office area, and then we have blue lights on all four sides of our building, so when the lockdown button is pushed, it'll alert people that are outside not to come back inside during that emergency. If staff ever find themselves in a situation where both the lockdown button and the 911 call need to happen, and they can safely do so, they just push both buttons at the same time. Our camera systems are enterprise level camera system. This is a large scale operation across our buildings, and we, on the security and emergency management, deal with the maintenance and regular updates. They're monitored and recorded throughout the day and after hours for activities, and we're expanding our coverage to include more outdoor areas such as playgrounds, stadiums, and our parking lots. When we're thinking of two-way radios, communication is critical during any emergency response. And we've recently upgraded our entire system to a digital two-way radio system. This upgrade will give us instant communication between our staff and administrators, the ability to communicate between different schools around the same time, and then better signal coverage throughout all areas of our buildings. And lastly, when we're thinking of additional safety tools that we have in our buildings, I'd say the most important and kind of what's near and dear to my heart is a locked door. Locked doors are our #1 security measure in our buildings. All exterior doors stay locked during the day, and then all interior doors should be back locked, so if there is an emergency, a staff member can just pull the door closed and keep that door locked. Recently, we've added security window film to glass in certain high-risk or high-traffic areas, so like the front of the buildings. And we did that as a delay mechanism to slow people down and give the time for the people inside during an emergency more time to react. Lighting plays a major role in creating a safe environment, especially for walkways, parking lot, outdoor spaces for our staff members and students after dark. And then we have intrusion alarms on our buildings, which will notify law enforcement if anybody were to try to enter during times that it may be unoccupied. Obviously, fire alarms for those moments where we may have to evacuate. And then PA systems and the HVAC shutdown buttons that Dave talked about as well. So now that we know physical security systems at Osseo Schools, I'll turn it back over to Dave.
All right, thank you, Matt. So the last component is the people component. So we've already talked about our emergency plan. We've already talked about physical security. To me, it's the people that make that all work. We can have all the bells and whistles, we can have all the greatest plans and all the greatest training, but it's the people in our buildings each and every day that make all of that happen and make this a safe place to work and to learn. It's a staff person that ensures that perimeter doors are closed and locked to prevent unwanted people from accessing the school. It's a staff person that greets and welcomes visitors in our secure entry system. It's a staff person that notices and reports an adult in the school without an ID badge. It's a staff person that reports suspicious or concerning behaviors to that. But most importantly, when I think about our staff and the difference that they make, they're the ones that show kindness and compassion to our students. From a bus driver greeting a student in the morning to a nutrition services staff providing a warm meal to a student, to the teacher that's encouraging a student to be their best self. It's our staff that really make a difference each and every day, and it goes a long way to making our buildings safe and secure.
The second step at the Secret Service got.
All right. That was me talking. All right. That caught me by surprise. All right. So
It's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
It does show up on a slide. I don't know if you click the QR code.
Yeah. So what I was going to talk about now is our Stop It Tip system. So we've since I've been in the district 9 years, and in that time we've always had some sort of tip line system. It started out as a kind of a voicemail that if you have a tip or something concerning that you wanted to report, you call this voicemail. Then it went to like a Google Doc. But it is one of those things. Our goal in our schools is actually that all our students are connected to an adult in the school, so that they're concerned about themselves, concerned about one of their classmates, that they have a trusted adult that they can go to. That's our goal. But if a student doesn't feel comfortable with that, best practice in security and emergency management is to have an anonymous reporting system, and that's where Stop It comes in. Stop It can be accessed many different ways. There's a phone number, there's an app that staff and students can download, and it's actually on every district device. So if we have a link on the desktop of an iPad, on a Chromebook. Every district staff person has it as well. And there's a link at the bottom of every web page that you go to in the district. So you can't miss it, plus we have a lot of flyers out in our schools. But essentially the way it works, if somebody reports something to our Stop It tip line, it is monitored 24/7. So if somebody reports something at 2 a.m. That is deemed life-threatening, so if there's talk of harm to self or harm to others, a Stop It agent will see that at 2 o'clock in the morning. They will call me. If I don't answer, they'll call Matt. And if Matt doesn't answer, they call Troy. But for whatever reason, if one of us does not answer, then it goes to 911. So it's one of those things that no kind of threat or concerning behavior is going unchecked at 2 o'clock in the morning, even if it rises to the level of life-threatening kind of thing. Other things that are not deemed life-threatening will basically show up in an inbox in security and emergency management and the particular site that it's about at 7 a.m. that kind of next day. But anything that is considered life-threatening, the immediate phone call to us, regardless of the time of day, to make sure that we are aware of that situation.
The second.
All right, now we go. Turn it over to Troy.
All right, thanks, Dave. And how do we come up with, our security and emergency management programs, ideas, and thoughts? It's not independent within our department. So back in 2016, we launched, it's had a couple different names, but the most current one is our Security and Emergency Management Advisory Committee. And that committee is made up of a variety of different stakeholders with multiple perspectives. We've had building leaders that we include. We've got parents. We've got district level staff and administration. We've got union representation. We've got local law enforcement, fire, and other emergency groups. And we come together 4 times a year with specific priorities that we want to tackle each year. And each year it kind of develops and moves in. And so when you think about all the things you heard today, like tip line was a discussion in that protocol. The type of cameras and systems we have and where we have coverage, that would also be brought through that. Years ago, we brought our advisory group to the sites. We gave them clipboards and said, walk through a building, give us your thoughts on our security infrastructure and feedback, and we learned a lot from that activity. And from there, we took recommendations. We framed it a lot. You've heard a lot over the last couple of years, especially with Build a Better Future. The Enrollment and Capacity Management Group, we modeled it off of that, and we've used it ever since. One of the most exciting things about that advisory group is we'll bring in students from the schools to sit in front of the advisory group and talk about a day in the life of a student. And it's amazing when you put them in front of a group of adults that want to listen what they have to say. Sometimes you're just like, oh my God, here it goes. But you hear the things like, hey, the bathrooms aren't safe, or we know this, like if there's a place you want to misbehave, this is the corner of the building to do it. And so we take that information and that feedback and we start to think about what are the challenges and obstacles and how can we help our site leaders and support them in our design and infrastructure. So it doesn't just come from myself, Dave, or Matt, or others. It does come from an advisory group. It's a well-rounded one. We've got elementary, middle school, and high school representation. We usually have members on that for a couple of years. We rotate out. And then we have the diehard, some of them that just live and eat and passion security, and they've been on it since the inception. And we really appreciate that support that they have with that. And then one of the last really big and important components of our entire security program and with people is partnerships. I will sit here today and say that I'm super proud of the relationships that we have with our communities. Kim and others have worked very hard to build those relationships. We have as well. So we have strong relationships with the City of Brooklyn Park, their administration, their Park and Recs team, and their fire, emergency management, and police departments. The City of Maple Grove as well. We work very closely with them. They cover a number of our schools as well, and we partner very closely with them. The City of Osseo, we work with them as well. And then one of the other components that we didn't always think about is Hennepin County, our county officials, and then our community colleges in and around our area. And so bi-monthly, we host a meeting with them, and we have conversations about what's going on within their little subset of area and what's going on in ours, and we work very closely with that. We do a lot of outreach. I know a lot of our partners will reach out and say, hey, we'd like to sit down and talk about something that's going on within our community. Could you help us out? We're like, absolutely. Just recently, I got the opportunity to sit in on the interview process for a new deputy chief at Maple Grove, which is really nice. Chief Warner and I worked very collaboratively on things. He says, I want a district perspective at that table. So he invited us in, and we got to give feedback on what that looks like. Those partnerships, they have so many benefits on a given day. We share intel and information because, our schools are a subset of our communities. And so that's important and invaluable information from our end. And so when things are surfacing outside the schools, they're likely going to come inside the school and vice versa. So we work very closely on that end. We also work very closely with communications on what's going out publicly from the city's perspective to a community perspective. I think about the recent loss in Brooklyn Park and what occurred there. The day of that event, our team spun up. We were out in the community. We were checking buildings. We had construction going on in our buildings at that time. Were our buildings secure and safe? And working with our law enforcement partners, we were able to go out, check things out, and look at those things. That's just one small example. But on a given day, we're talking to them all the time. And that leads into the next piece of it, which is our school resource officers. We did intentionally share some photos. When you think of school resource officers, until you get to know them, you think that they're maybe standing guard or post somewhere. These folks, they're in the schools, they're working with our kids, and they're doing things outside of the schools as well. They go above and beyond every day. It's amazing. We've done some school resource presentations in the past, and usually the board walks away like, I didn't know they did that. And they'll get in classrooms, they'll work on curriculum. And kids, I'll tell you what, you don't have to give them much. They'll be in the office, Dave and I or Matt will stop by, and they're having conversations with these kids that you just go, what? And kids will come in and say, you know what? Like Tony over at Osseo Senior, we were there one day, and Tony's talking to a student, and the student said, Tony, I got another ticket. I got another speeding ticket. And he's like, isn't that like number 4? And the student said, it's number 4. What do you think's going to happen this time? And Tony's like, I think your parents need to take away the keys to the car. But he started giving them some real open, honest communication on what it looks like, gave some really good advice. We had one SRO that had a special handshake at every basketball or football game, just building those connections and those relationships. It's a great chance for kids to interact with law enforcement, kind of at a different point, right? It's not on the street, it's not committing a crime, it's when they're in their school day. And so we work very closely with them, and we partner with them on a daily basis, and they really partner well with our school leaders as well. They interact where they need to interact. They know what's law enforcement requirements, and they know what's administratively. So they definitely understand that. We have strong ties with them, and we work very closely, and we've developed some very good models on how to take care of our kids in the classroom. I know recently SROs were out of our buildings for a while. While the legislation figured some things out language-wise, they came back and they said, here's our new model SRO contracts. And so districts had to scramble to adjust. But one of the nice things is we've worked so proactively with them over the years. We had model SRO contracts before this ever hit the street. And so we were set, ready to go. And I do believe some of the state leaders that have been implementing and training this took some of our ideas from our model to start developing it on a state level. So we're pretty excited about that. With that, I will wrap up, and I will open it up for any questions that the board might have about us and our team.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
I just have a question. Sometimes parents ask the physical entry system some districts have where you have to scan your ID before even getting into the building. Can you help me have an answer for them? Is that something in our future? Is there a reason we do or don't have that?
Yes, I'll take it.
It.
Yeah,
You're super excited about this.
Well, yeah, our current setup today was actually born out of our CMAC, where we had very intentional discussions about where that check-in occurred, and that's kind of why we had the current setup. But we saw a shift in the past year or two, where we were seeing more and more like, and we knew like, our neighbors in the Anoka, they've done it different, and we knew that when we implemented our current style. But we noticed a shift in the past year or two of like, hey, we really want to look at getting that check-in procedure to occur in the vestibule before they even step into the school. And so we are actively pursuing that. If you've noticed here, our Raptor check-in system, we've got some iPads. That is the future that we're hoping to move forward with this school year. There's some things, we've been kind of testing it. We've been working very closely with Raptor. There's some kind of bugs that we need to kind of work out, because before we implement something, we want to make sure it's something that's very solid, not only for our schools, but our caregivers and visitors to use. But yes, that is 100% is our goal, is to move our Raptor visitor managements out from the office, out into the vestibule, so that check happens before they even step into the office.
As you see new construction going up, you're going to go into some of the buildings eventually, maybe see some of that. You'll see visitor vestibules that will be there where they can interact. 8 years ago was about warm and welcoming. That's what we got back from a lot of our staff and our advisory, and today it's more around safe and secure. So there's a transition that's occurring as we speak.
That's great. And then the other question, if you can help me have an answer for, is about metal detectors, why we don't have that. I mean, I assume cost, obviously, but just to be able to answer that question.
Want me to handle this one?
I think as well, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, it is one of those things, when we think about metal detectors, the weapons detection systems that I just put air quotes, weapon detection systems, there's a lot with the current technology of some of these products that they're selling, and it's not, it's not necessarily how they're marketing them and how they actually work are potentially two different things. Where there's a false sense of security. If
Yes.
you dial them
Thank you.
down, things are getting in. If you dial them up, then you have this line out the door. My professional opinion is those weapon detection systems right now is that the technology isn't there yet. I think it may get there one day. And then the other perspective I think we need to have discussions about is what does that feel like for our students to walk through that? Is it a sense of safety and security, or is it did they walk into a space that does not feel safe kind of thing? And the other component of that is that's putting a focal point of just on one entry where somebody may be bringing in a weapon, but you think about our high schools and very large outer doors, we have to be very mindful of what those doors are. They shouldn't be unlocked, but are people trying to prop those doors? Are people letting people in? We need to comprehensively kind of look at that. What I would say is we are very aware of kind of what's out there, and we have conversations, and we are, I would just say, learning is kind of where we're at, just being aware of what's out there and potentially what those things could look for in OSSEO, but not looking at anything specific currently to implement in OSSEO.
Nope. Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah. When the board has discussed that topic before, just the environment that it creates for students is, we have not felt that would be creating the right environment for students.
And I think it's very well known as we go to national conferences and state conferences, that it's one of those conversations had all over the place. So we always like to go and meet with school districts that do it. We've had conversations with them, the pros and the cons, and we try to balance and look at that. One of the things you also got to think about, it's you can't turn it on and turn it off, and most districts turn it on and turn it off. What I mean by that is you turn it on at 7 a.m., the school goes to 2 p.m., they're done, they leave, they shut it off. But our buildings are still open and we have a lot of activity in it. What does that mean for the rest of the building for security, not for the rest of the day, but in general? You go to the airport, they don't shut off and turn on those metal detection. You only get into that area during those times.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Well, first, I'm really thankful and grateful for learning all of this, because I think you guys are thinking through a lot of things I think nobody really thinks about, or I know I don't, and I feel like there's just so many details in that level that you take great care in that, and protecting and ensuring our staff and our students are safe. I had a couple questions though around with our new policy around cell phones and parents being concerned, the safety concerns that parents have expressed about not getting a hold of their student if there's an emergency. How are we communicating to our families to ensure that they have kind of that level of feeling confident? We're board members. I say that all the time. I know, I have full confidence in our schools, and I know my kids are safe, my kids and all of our kids. But just that's going to, that's new for people, and there's some. So I guess I'm just curious of how we're communicating.
Director Dawson, we have another about 35,
Okay.
40 minutes going into the actual schools,
Perfect.
and the principals will be
Perfect.
able to speak to that
Okay.
as well. So.
And then the other question I had was around just given that what happened in the assassination in Brooklyn Park, and then of course the attempted assassinations. We talked a lot about what happens in our buildings, and I'm kind of talking more from a school board member perspective. But when we talk about outside of meetings, and I know the legislator and other electeds had talked about different notification systems if things happen amongst each other and the police and leadership. Is there anything for school board members that are happening? Because I think that sometimes we're at such a local level with people, and I remember during COVID, there was a lot of times where it was even scary just going anywhere just because people were so upset. So I guess I was just curious about is there a notification system outside of the buildings, outside of meetings for
Notifying board members in
Right.
case of an event.
Mhm.
Well, you've got to pause for me because I'm thinking about that live as you're sharing it. But I did recently share after that event, I've shared some stuff with the superintendent regarding, public officials. And there's some recent bulletins that have come out from the state level about public officials, where your information is publicly posted, what does that look like?
Mhm.
And is there ways and tools and methods to prevent that? You know, you're very public in the work you do, and so there's some resources I've given Dr. Heil that we can probably share with you as well, just from that end, to take some precautions as school board members. It's up to you. You know, I know obviously as elected officials, you want to be able to connect with your constituents and have that opportunity. The question is do you want to have your home address and other things posted for folks to find that? And so I provided some information that I think we could probably share. As far as the notification piece, I think we would take that back. We could probably have a discussion and look at, is there a method we could work with cabinet and the school board to possibly do something like that?
What do you mean by notification? Like,
Well-
like I'm gonna ask Kelsey, like an alarm going off?
No,
Because
just
I was
like
in Jamaica when
communication.
the assassination happened, and
Right.
we were talking like we were next
Well,
door
I didn't talk to
neighbors.
anybody, you
Yeah.
know, during that time. Like, I mean, I think I talked to Thomas maybe or something, but I didn't know, like, not that anything was happening to anybody in particular, but, you know, there was just no, like, I don't know, we didn't really
You
talk
guys
until.
got a text, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah,
mean
just-
talking with each
just
other?
like-
Oh, I see.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know, it's just kind of
Yeah.
been, I'm connected to a lot of other school board members and across the state, and so people just have asked that question about, like, you know, I think because, like, we're just so accessible, like, more than anybody, like, a lot of other, like, elected positions. It was just a question. I was wondering if there is anything, not necessarily even our district is doing, but just.
Not that I'm aware of right now, but there is communications that came out about prevention and mitigation
Yeah.
around your public official responsibilities and what you share or don't share from residential and what do they call it, the information component, your baseline
Yeah,
information.
sure. Yeah, your personal information that's online. It's amazing, you know, with just, you know, hitting the right websites of how much of your public information is just.
There's a lot out there. We have some resources we can share with you guys if you want to take a look at that.
Yeah, I know in the instance where we have had a school board member receive a threat, like we've worked with the local law enforcement in that situation. MSBA might have some information, and I know there's.
I think it's just more, I'm not asking probably for a specific answer, but just for this discussion purposes, I think that it just goes along with kind of the emergency management and safety and security, especially as things that are become more controversial potentially come up. I think it's really important. Okay, my two other things, you've mentioned kind of other districts and like the county and things like that. I mean, and it seems like what you guys have done is so sophisticated. I mean, are we kind of at that like cutting edge across the different districts across the country, or even the state around?
First, thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're super excited to hear that from you. And I don't mean to brag. We do have a unique opportunity with the tech levy that we partnered with Anthony to invest in both people and infrastructure and resources. And that's been super beneficial for us in the last couple of years. We've been scraping and fighting for a number of years to receive funding and collect funding, and that's been a challenge. And so when we did that, when we made the initial move, what's it been, Anthony, 2 years now?
We're here, yeah,
We're
2 years.
Going to
Tech
year
levy.
three.
With the increase for safety, security, and cybersecurity.
Yeah, and so as we walk, we bring, a lot of districts will hear about what's going on here, and they want to come over and see it. And it's kind of like the kid in the candy store, they see it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to have that. And so we have to keep reminding them that it takes time, it takes planning, you gotta be strategic around it. I do think we do invest in our people, and that's probably the most important thing. Professional development for our staff, and certifications and other things that we elevate people up so we can come in. You heard Dave here talk about a lot of things today. He's really well detailed, and you just recently, in the last 48 hours, what's your new certification?
I am a certified threat manager through the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals. So
How many are in the state of Minnesota, Dave?
I would be number 10.
So we put time in our people, and you can hear it from when Dave talks. He's very passionate about the work he does, and that's because we have the opportunity with our senior leadership from John and others that we can invest in people to train, because it's always moving, and we're constantly getting intel, we're constantly looking at things, and we're calling our partners in our city and state level just to say, hey, what's going on here, so we can adjust and pivot. And I know that word's sensitive for some people, but we pivot a lot.
And one of the things I would say I really like working in K-12 security is, unlike the private sector where everybody's doing what they're like, oh, it's all secret what we're doing. When I was hired in this position, and this is really the foresight of the district, outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul, there was no dedicated security people that were working in schools. Now, most major districts have a role similar to mine. And that's nice because now we have connections all over the metro. Hennepin County does a really good job with their SHIELD program, which is their public-private partnership that brings us all together, made connections with each other. And so we're all facing the same challenges. And so what are you using? What are you working on? And it's just a good network of people. Of if somebody, you know, like Brooklyn Center Schools was here a couple weeks ago because they knew we were using some new Raptor stuff. So they came here to take a look at that kind of thing. We've gone out to other sites, other districts and looked at the stuff that they're using. So I just say it's a nice community of everybody's wanting to help each other out and say, here's what's working for us and here's what our challenges are.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, my only question was about the levy, and you kind of touched on that, is how much of this came about out of that? Because I know it's always tough to ask taxpayers for more money, but
Yeah,
hearing this kind of thing and even just seeing like the new points of entry has
There's
been
only a
huge
few-
as a parent.
There's only a few funding models. There's the, I'm drawing the blank on the Safe Schools levy, which is limited. There's a certain dollar amount per pupil. It's been the same for how many years, John? 150?
Longer than I've been in schools.
And so it's very limited. It's getting smaller and smaller, and that's what we usually buy our SRO resources with. And then we have our normal capital that we share with all schools. This is competing against books, band instruments, other things. And so we used to have to duke it out with all the other members in cabinet, and now we really don't. We can free that money up to get it back into the classrooms, and we have a unique opportunity to get the resources we need
Because of the levy.
because of the levy. And we really built it over years. We were building our stuff over the Capitol over years and doing some really unique financing to do it. And we got to a point where it got so large that if the levy hadn't come along, we wouldn't be able to maintain our clear systems because it's so much. When I was talking about, or they mentioned cameras and how many we have, that stuff has to be refreshed on a cycle, just like iPads or laptops and desktops and technology like that.
For we want to say thank you, but we gotta
go.
We got a lot.
One last thing, I really appreciated when we had those safety community meetings a few years ago. That I thought was really valuable. So I hope that we can get this out. We need the safety ones that were in the community, like a while back.
Oh, we used to
Yeah.
travel. We could talk out.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
used to
okay.
travel and go out and visit into schools and stuff.
Yeah, that was really good.
Safety meetings in the community.
Like it was kind of like a. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was like really.
Dr. Ryan,
Yes.
we have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes.
To do what?
We had.
Oh, no, All right, so we're going more and more internal into safety management now. So Steve, can you introduce who's with us today to give more an idea of how we handle discipline and concerns at the sites?
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. So, good evening and thank you, Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, Superintendent, certainly all our directors, our members, of the cabinet and our guests here. As you can see, we do have quite a lineup. Troy and Dave talked about the people and they ended it because we're going to hear a little bit more about the people involved. So our presentation is going to shift more towards that lens towards student management and the systems, roles, and resources that support the students and staff throughout the school day. So these efforts are essential to maximizing learning, of course, ensuring safety, and maintaining the accountability across all the sites. So tonight I'm joined by Sunny Burska, who's our Director of Student Services, Amy Towson, our district level principal, and four of our incredible leaders, Dr. Bart Becker, David Branch, Dr. Antoine Harris, and Ryan Gibbs, who will share building level perspectives and how these supports are implemented in real time. So hopefully we're going to highlight the interconnected nature of that physical safety and behavioral support. You'll learn about universal interventions and as well as targeted plans for our students with IEPs. Our systems are designed to respond to the student needs while maintaining a safe and productive learning environment. We also would like to thank Troy and Dave and Matt, certainly for their ongoing coordination with our schools. Those efforts help us ensure that our efforts in the buildings are aligned and comprehensive. So we look forward to sharing a little bit more and just collaborating about how we collaborate and uphold our safe and responsive climates. So as you can see here, we have the outcomes. I won't read them to you, but we're also going to just touch on, again, those supports, and our building principals will be led in a bit of a conversation. Amy Tolson will share with us, as well as how we handle when students become dysregulated during the school day, and want you to understand all the things that occur behind the scenes, as well as something we're very proud of, and that's our safety committee that we've been partnering with EMO. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Amy, and we're going to jump right into things.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Superintendent Heil, Board Chair Prince, and Vice Chair Brooks. Thank you, and to our board members. Thanks for having us this evening. And we're going to, as we said, dive a little bit deeper. So when we think about it, each and every day our scholars walk through our doors into our sites, and we have no idea how they're going to show up. So they might show up to us with smiles on their face, full of joy, running to their classrooms, ready to learn. And they also might show up in very different ways, having emotional responses, because we have no idea what's happened in their life outside of the day. And they come to us, and it could be something as simple as they had, maybe not simple, but they had a bad haircut the night before. They lost a game from their sports team. It could be a conflict that they had on social media, which happens a lot, with our scholars. It could be that they got in a conflict with a sibling, or maybe they're really stressed out. But all of these different ways are what impact our children each and every day as they walk through our doors, and how they present themselves also is really varied. And so some children really go inward and they become very quiet and they might be withdrawn. Other students might become emotional, and other students might have some bigger, more physical responses to whatever it is that's impacting them. And it is our job to really understand each and every scholar and how we have relationships with them to know when they are not coming to school as they may typically present themselves each and every day. So we're going to talk about all of the different supports that occur in our buildings and the people and the humans that play a really big impact in supporting our scholars when they are not showing up in a way where they're really ready to learn. So in our elementary schools, we have several different roles that really help support our scholars, from counselors to social workers. A role that you may not be familiar with is our behavior intervention teacher, and I'll talk a little bit about that. A behavior ESP that really collaborates with that behavior intervention teacher, of course the administrators, and we have case managers that really support our scholars who are receiving special education services. At our secondary schools, or in grades 6 through 12, the roles are really similar. I would say the only difference is staff role called a student management specialist, or an SMS, and they are vital to helping support our secondary scholars who maybe are not able to be ready to learn in the classroom, and for whatever reason the teacher is either saying you can't be there, or they themselves are advocating to leave the classroom, or if there's something happening in the hallways, our SMSs are often the very first people to be on site trying to understand what it is that's going on and help to get to the bottom of whatever the incident may be. At certain points, then we also have district level supports. We have a role called district behavior specialists. We only have a few of them in our system. However, they are experts in helping to understand student behaviors and really supporting site teams when there might be an individual student that is having repeated behaviors or having multiple different kinds of behaviors, and we just cannot quite figure out exactly how to best support them, and a DBS can really help provide individualized personal support for those scholars. We have our student services administrators, which really primarily work with Sunny's team and help just partner around the many nuances with students receiving special education services, and trying to really partner with parents and guardians as well as school staff to find a collaborative support and a plan for our students receiving services. myself, the district level principal, that people, our admin teams consult with on various occasions. We have obviously Troy and Dave's team, and then also our director of student services, Sunny. So what does this actually look like in the classroom? So we have a student that is really dysregulated in a variety of different ways that I described early on. And the first thing that might happen is the teacher is going to use their tools that they have in their toolbox to try to redirect, re-engage the student in a variety of different ways. When that doesn't happen, or the teacher is feeling that the actions that they're seeing are maybe bigger than what they can handle in the classroom, then it is time that they would be reaching out to other support staff. And typically the first people might be responding at the elementary would be that behavior intervention teacher. The teacher might come to the classroom, help to try to understand the needs of the scholar, and really try to get them to reset. And then really our goal is to get the students back in the classroom and ready to learn. That same person might be an SMS at the secondary level, trying to, again, understand what are the needs of the student, what is happening, and try to get them to reset. In those cases, there also could be partnership with a counselor or a social worker if that scholar has different relationships with those roles. It also could be consulting with a case manager for students receiving services, because they are really, really experts in the needs of that child and really can help to partner to help that child reset with, again, the goal is to get our students back in the classroom. Also, our administrators are always there to help support if it is something where a student is having an incident, or multiple students are having incidences, or it's a more serious situation, such as some of the things that Troy and Dave referenced around weapons or threats. Then we are going to have the admin team be involved and be all hands on deck to make sure that we are managing the safety of the building and managing the safety of the scholars. And then ultimately, we're always partnering with our parent and guardian. So anytime that we are in communication with our scholars around safety incidences, we are also in communication with families and trying to help them understand what's been going on, and then helping them understand how are we going to respond. So that is not a linear activity.
No.
That involves many different layers and kind of swirls around. And additionally, I would say that the vast majority of incidences that are happening in a site are being handled by the team there. They really work in collaboration with each other amongst all those different roles to be preventative, to try to de-escalate, and then also be very responsive and really try to get at the root cause of whatever it is that's going on. And so that really happens from that collaborative effort at the site. So we talk about all of these different supports or interventions, and I'm not going to walk through every single one of them because this list is far too exhaustive. So I'll just kind of highlight a couple of them that may not be quite self-explanatory. Check in, check out is when there is an adult that would literally check in with the student at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. It's an evidence-based intervention to help students for a variety of different reasons for a period of a few weeks until we hope to see some changes in their needs. Sometimes students just need to move around. That could just mean a lap and they're back in their classroom, or some movement to help them, again, reset. We have sometimes skill development with social workers or counselors. So our goal is to teach, not just to remove from the classroom or to punish and have them suspended out of the classroom. The goal is what's the root cause and how do we help students learn so that they're not having to repeat incidents or these repeat behaviors. We also really try to partner with getting families access to mental health when at all possible. And we also, again, bring in and partner with Dave and Troy's team around the threat assessments. So we do have overlap, of course, with all of kind of the staff around student supports, and when we need to, we definitely partner because they have their resources, especially around threat assessments, that are really beneficial to saying, all right, now this serious incident has happened, how are we going to reintegrate the student back in so that not only the student feels supported, but also the school community feels ready for that student to return after a serious incident. So these, again, are kind of a lot of the general tools that are being used, and I think most of them are self-explanatory, so I'll just leave that list for you to review. All of our students on IEPs have access to all the supports and services that Amy just covered, and a vast majority of their needs are met within that scope. We have additional services, of course, for students that may be having behaviors that are bigger than what can be managed in the classroom at times. We provide functional behavioral assessments, or FBAs, through the evaluation process, where we identify students' behavioral triggers, how we may prevent those behaviors, and essentially the trajectory we would like to see the student take in order to find some alternative or replacement behaviors. And we document that in a behavior support plan, or a BSP, and that's for the adults that interact with that student, so they know exactly what steps that they should take in order to either prevent or respond to behaviors. So we update those from time to time when students are showing new needs. You'll notice this list is really increasing in level of restrictiveness as I go down. That paperwork portion that we talked about is not very restrictive to a student. Increasing their special education services, increasing ESP or educational support professional minutes or time with the student. Those are a little bit more restrictive and intensive. They involve decisions made by a student's IEP team in their database decisions. And so they don't take place based on, suggestions or quick conversations. It's really more intensive than that. We partner with District 287 in a variety of ways. We have access to their Nexus team, which is an intervention team with very skilled professionals with unique professional development and experiences that provide some wraparound support when we have students in crisis. Occasionally, we have students that are on a partial day. We alter their schedule because they're better able to perform and access school on a unique schedule. We also have a handful of students at any given time accessing home-based education. Because of where they're at behaviorally, they're unable to be safe in the school building for a short period of time, so we are educating them either virtually or in their home so that they get everything that they need. Again, with the goal of that being short-term. And we also partner with 287 for students to attend programming there. So we have about 130 students in our district that access that level of programming where they are not currently in our school buildings, working on gaining skills so that they can transition back. All right, so now the excitement is here to have our special guests share a little bit about their experiences. So they did have an opportunity to already introduce themselves, so we're just going to jump into a few questions that they can then respond to. So I'm going to start by inviting our elementary principals to think about how have you supported students in grades K through 3 with the shift of no suspensions allowed by state statute.
We're probably going to say similar things. But even prior, Garden City, prior to the non-exclusionary disciplinary practices being required, we had lots of things in place already. So we use calming corners, we use calm down corners, they're called, that are in the classroom. That's required by for all teachers to have that, including our specialists, music teachers, things like that. We use behavior charts, but I neglected something. One of the best things about Garden City is I believe I have one of the stronger SEL behavior teams that includes a school social worker, psychologist, many of the folks up there. But we also partner with St. David's, and they sit in on some of the meetings with the agreement with the district, so we can share some information there. And I have an outstanding instructional assistant as well, and we are in the process of looking for a behavior intervention teacher this year, if you know anybody.
I could have somebody for you.
But that team is really student-centered, proactive, and so going back to what Dave said about the people, I think Dr. Fliss also reiterated that. It's who we have in the buildings, and that they're student-centered and care about the kids. I could go down and name a bunch of strategies, but if we don't have the right people, the strategies are meaningless. So And one of the things I also want to emphasize going into this school year, what we noticed is that I have a lot of staff that are younger, and they forget this concept of the idea of the last word, that it's okay for students to have the last word. We're going to avoid those power struggles. And so then we unintentionally escalate a student, and then it's like, oh my goodness. So, but then we have we call it the cozy code. We have a calming space. But I just really want to emphasize it's the people that we have around our students.
Hi everybody, thanks for letting me get a chance to share a little bit about Oakview and this incredible district. So as someone who's come to Osseo last year, after working in the district for a very long time, one thing that really stuck out is the amount of support this district has for buildings and for principals. I was used to, always having the team approach and building my team in my school, but being able to come here in Osseo and be able to say, okay, I've got the phone to Dr. Fliss, Troy, anyway, Dave, and say, okay, this is what's happening, I need a thought partner. Folks are so responsive. So when I think of K-3, there's days or some days where I'm on the floor, 2 or 3 little ones, just being with them, as they're exploring their behaviors. And it's part of it is really listening and understanding what's happening. I want my staff to have the belief that all kids will achieve at high levels, not just that they can. And that starts from me as the leader. So helping to support my staff with that belief and mindset that behavior is all about, it's a language. We have to be curious and figure out what that is. We can't blame the kids, but we also can't blame the adults for how they react. We can support them and help them go through this journey. So for the K-3, like David, I'm one who, I could hold on my hand how many kids I've ever suspended in that age. We know it doesn't work, so we've used things like restorative circles, really listening to kids and getting in-depth interventions. And a lot of it goes down to relationships. It's relationships with families, it's relationships with the leader and the principal and the teachers. And then it's the kids. So often we don't take time to listen to what the kids need. And I had a moment last year where a little guy was climbing on a banister, and it was like my second month. So they were just getting to know Mr. Gibbs here. We weren't that tight yet. And so I'm just I'm being with him, right? Like I'm not grabbing the kid down, I'm not yelling. You're walking with them in that moment. And there's tons of research that shows when someone's dysregulated, you almost have to be like their brain. Yeah. And I'll share that with kids. Like, I'm going to be your brain right now. And once we have that relationship, that it's like they release some of that heavy stuff, and they kind of help you walk them through how to get to calm. I teach my staff focusing on calm. Let's get to calm. And kids get that, right? Like kids are dysregulated. I said, right now we're just going to focus on getting to calm. And hearing from this kid, this little guy that was climbing, I said, so-and-so, what do you need right now? And it was kind of like, you're asking me? What I need? Yeah, what do you need? And he told me, he said, I need a walking break, Mr. Gibbs. I said, I probably do too. I had too many cheeseburgers for lunch. Let's go. So again, it's a mindset. It's really teaching folks that behavior is communication, and that these little people, no kid, doesn't want to learn or doesn't want to. They want to have a sense of belonging. They want to have folks who care about them, and it's that authentic, right? It's like kids know if you're faking it. Be real authentic. Telling your teachers, like, you got to be authentic. The last thing I'll share, and I've learned tons from this guy, by the way. Before I came to this district, I came out to his building to get some tips. But we both are implementing a lot of mindfulness work with students. We have a program called Move Mindful that we've partnered with, and it's a break. Sometimes mindfulness can kind of have this, wait a minute, peace and love. Well, it is a little bit of that. It's all based on brain. It's brain research. And so I really work with families on it. It's like we're using brain-based strategies with these little kids when they're dysregulated. We're teaching them, we're filling their toolkit. One of my favorite moments last year was I literally brought a little toolbox out and I said, okay kids, we're building our toolbox together this year. And it was just that idea like, oh, I can be empowered to get some tools to handle myself when I get dysregulated. So for K-3, it's a lot of just teaching and mindset with adults.
All right, thank you. To all of you, how do you support students with frequent emotional needs during the school day?
I'll take this. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Board members, Dr. Heil, I'm Dr. Harris, Principal of Park Center Senior High. I was not in the room, so I wanted to introduce myself. I will say this about me and my house and my babies. I have 5 counselors. I have 4 social workers. I have 4 SMSs, and I have 2 in-school therapists from People's Inc., along with myself and my admin team, which is my other 3 APs. And our focus has always been and always will be on teaching our babies conflict resolution skills in high school, to be able to learn how to deal with conflict, to be able to learn how to communicate to others. And so when you have different situations that occur between students, we first communicate with both of those students and sit both of those students down and have a conversation. But to those students that are disrupted by that, we have conversations with our grade level meetings about we all have bad days, and how would you want to be able to be to support it during those days. And so what we do is, we buddy up students, we pair students with other students in our building via their alphabet, to where you always will have someone you connect with. If you cannot connect with that person, you connect with an adult, one of the ones I just mentioned to you, along with our teachers. And so what we found is, over the last few years, we've been able to create a warm atmosphere with our staff, with our students, to be able to communicate and connect with each other. That helps everyone understand each other, because we all have bad days. And so for us, along with our 2 calming rooms, we have 2 calming rooms as well in high school. And sometimes I may go in there myself because it's a bad day. But at the end of the day, we work well together, and I want to echo the sentiment of both of these gentlemen here. There is not a day that goes by that if there's something that I need, like I pick up the phone and call Dr. Howell and Dr. Bass and Dr. Flisk and Amy and Bart and my other principals to say, okay, this is what's happening, what do you think? So we have a collective group, but we communicate with each other. So that's my spiel.
Anyone have anything?
That's pretty good. I will just reiterate what has been shared is the behaviors are simply the manifestations. And what every staff member in every building, no matter what position, they are focused on the relationships and learning the student's story to the best they are able in that position. Because it's that story that will get us to the root of whatever's going on, which manifests in the behavior. And we have a network, yes, all the structures and the positions and the roles and the supports, and yet there is also this triaging that's occurring at all times of the day between, hey, I know this student and I saw this, hey, and the quick, whatever, if it's a call, a text, or it's passing the hallway to, from a hall monitor to an SMS, or to a counselor, or to a resource teacher who they know that student's assigned to, and you might want to check in on so. There's all that other network that isn't aligned in a structure that exists. It's this constant effort of the adults in the building to know the students and their stories, and then observe, constantly observing, and then reporting to the appropriate personnel to then follow up and check on that student.
So we've spent time talking about the individual student that is dysregulated or really having a challenging time getting through the day, but can you speak to how you support the other students in the building that are also impacted sometimes by that student's actions and behaviors?
I have a great team. One of the things that we have been really focused on putting in place since since coming back from the pandemic, because we've seen more bigger outbursts and behaviors, things being torn apart in the classroom, is getting the classroom together with the teacher and doing circles. So we talked about restorative practices. We do that. I think somebody had a question about how we communicate these things. We also communicate. Kay has been great in helping formulate emails or talking points to families when we do have a big incident. But really the biggest part of that recovery is helping the teacher recover and bring her classroom back to a sense of normalcy and safety, because what you get is students feeling, you can walk in the room and you can just feel the anxiety coming from the students. So taking the time to do that follow-up. Sometimes it does not happen until the next day because the incident happened at the end of the day, but we always do a follow-up with those big moments of dysregulation. So, and that's either my school counselor, my behavior intervention teacher / IA, separated those two positions this year. I do have an opening for the behavior intervention team. Interviews are on Thursday, so anyway, and then we also, the school social worker, all trained in restorative practices and running circles. And it's just really powerful because what comes out first is that they're mad at the student, but then we process and work through that. And have you ever had a bad day? I think one of my colleagues here said something like that. Yeah, we have bad days and processing through that. And we meet with, I meet with any parents that stop up saying, I heard about this happen. Can you tell me what you're doing to keep our kids safe and things like that. So, and I walk them through a similar process. So, yeah, restorative circles. Yep.
I could add, for students who were significantly impacted by bullying, one of the things I ask of my team, and then I model and support with that too, is that it's not just a one-time check-in with the victim. It's connecting with the student who was harmed, their family, and then really together in a partnership with the family, like talking through what does it with the little guy, like a daily check-in with me or with the staff that they know, like what can we do long-term to ensure that big incident or that incident of bullying that's happening, that the kid understands and knows that they are protected, and it's not just 2 days, 3 days. Like I will be checking with kids all year to make sure that they know that they're being supported and not that the adults will step in and help stop it.
And we're providing and maintaining a calm environment is one piece that we talk about, right? And we are providing assurances to our babies, to our teachers, to our families about what we are and communicating about any particular situation or incident. So it's the communication piece that happens across the board to those babies and to the students who are impacted by this regulation. So that's where we go.
All right, and our last question is, how do you typically address behavior concerns presented to you by your staff members?
I joke sometimes when I'm tired, so I just caught myself. So.
Now we want to hear it.
No.
Thank you.
I think one of the things, again, since the pandemic, as we've seen some bigger behaviors and bigger emotions, we've also seen that from teachers as well. And so providing opportunity and space for the teacher to process, like I said, they will participate in the circle, but if the teacher needs that individual time to process what happened, and the question frequently asked is, well, what does it take to suspend a student? And walking them through, hey, this is who we are at Garden City. This is our, particularly in K3, but overall K5, we have these conversations. So, but what I want to just add to that is that we follow up. I personally follow up, or I ask one of my support team members to follow up with the teacher. Sometimes if I'm tied up in something, working with a parent, then they'll circle back to me, my support team, and say, no, you have to go talk to this teacher because she's so upset. We've had circumstances where we've just had one of the support staff go and cover the classroom because we want that teacher to also be regulated and ready to return. And I've had situations where the teacher is not ready to return and excuse them for that day, and they're back the next day, and they say they appreciated that opportunity. That's only been a handful of times, but you can only get hit and pushed so many times, right? So, and that is a reality about some of our babies. But one thing that I do say to the teachers is that if you're having trouble, getting back your brain regulated and slowed down, and that amygdala is not being, is on fire. Imagine yourself in that child's space. Yet what they did was wrong. I'm not excusing that behavior, but they are a 8 or 9-year-old child, and they don't have the skills that you do. So we walk through that, and sometimes it's also meeting with EMO. I've had some really good meetings over the years with EMO and just talking about the process, and in that partnership, they've helped teachers understand that we want our kids in school, that we're doing a lot of things at our site to support, but it's hearing that other voice, so that partnership has been important with EMO to, coming out, so. And then I am, I can make mistakes, right? I don't have all the information, I don't, and either that's returning the student too soon to the classroom. I did not realize that, this was part of the incident. And yes, I will bring the student back out. I didn't know that happened, things like that. So I think owning that we make mistakes and having that vulnerability with our teachers is extremely important, because I'm out in the hallways all the time. I'm pretty sure all of us are. And they seeing me react and model and different things like that. I think you were sharing that as well, Ryan. But they also see me make mistakes, right? And it's how I recover, it's helping model and hopefully, we can talk the talk and show all the slides and stuff, but if you're not out there with the teachers showing and demonstrating and modeling best practices, who else is going to do it, right? I mean, it's not. I kind of got lost there. I'm tired. Sorry.
Again, someone new to ASIO last year, coming into this organization, some of the things that I really connected with is the investment in leadership, be it understanding how to hold space, to moving into becoming a listening leader. All of these, the training that we use and have as a collective leaders in this group, this organization, really helps go back to the human-centric mode of leadership. Right? But I tell you, it's so important. Like, if somebody gets hurt, you stop and you ask them, "How are you doing?" It can be as simple as that, right? Like, but knowing that you care, and I think about all the work you do before an incident. It's all that relationship and all that equity in the bank you have with people. That when we make mistakes, we own it. We know better. We do better. Helps create that psychological safety within our organization, so that people know that they're cared for, that they're important, and that's just a really, really powerful piece that as a newbie to this district, I am so proud to be part of that, because that is really that's why we go into this business, right? We're about humans, and it's about the babies, right? But it's equally as important that we're taking care of our adults. If they're not strong, they're strong for little ones. So we're doing some good work here.
I will shortly say that I always aim to balance accountability with support. I say that to the adults to remind themselves about the expectations of our babies, but also my expectations of them as adults in their jobs, to where they may make a mistake, or they may have a bad day, or they may have a bad week, and the expectations they want from me is to support them. And so I remind my teachers and my staff members that we have to have that balance between both, and they are understanding that aspect.
Thanks, Ward. One thing I will add is the first thing we do when presented by a staff member is to listen to that staff member and to validate their concerns. Oftentimes they're emotional, and as has been alluded to, sometimes in the end, after you get their story and then you learn from the students or others, the staff member may not have been perfect. That's down the road. In that moment, you listen and validate to them. They need to know that we support them and are hearing them. And then from there, depending on what the situation is, in my term and my team, we call it the point. And again, it's who has the relationship. Which amongst our team has the relationship with that student, and we immediately contact the point. And if it's a new student and isn't on our radar, then we go either alpha split to either the ESMS, to their case manager, the resource teacher, or to the counselor, depending on what it is. And the last thing I'll add is what was read in the previous ones. I can't express how meaningful it is when a member of the leadership team swings back and checks in on a staff member or a class or students that has witnessed something that they didn't come to school to witness. It reiterates, and it's just cool to do it. And you can use lines like, "Hey, I noticed that X, Y, and Z after this occurred. I just wanted to swing back and check on you." It's a great way and a hugely powerful way to establish a connection with that student that you didn't have before, and you leverage that down the road in the future. So that's the last thing after that.
All right, well, thank you all for sharing. And as we talk deeply about, hearing from them about what that looks like at the site, there are times, as we've kind of shared along the way, that they are reaching out to our district team to collaborate in different ways. So you heard about just that partnership and consultation. If there is a more serious incident in which they believe that having a suspension away from school 3 or more days, they'd be consulting with me. We obviously work with our behavior threat assessments, and of course our strong collaboration with student services.
Okay, so why don't we move into the next one? So I'm going to kind of just touch on a little bit of the history of our EMO safety units, which is a collaboration here. But before I start, I do want to acknowledge the recent and heartbreaking loss of Teresa Burrows. As you will see in one of the slides, she has been a huge partner in the work that we've done and the collaboration. So we're going to talk a little bit about the accomplishments. So it's a little bittersweet to share that. We had hoped, obviously, that she was here with us this evening, and that's no longer possible. So I do want to thank her for her unwavering support, her collaboration, and her work with us, and really the courage to kind of take the time on her part in this, all representing, obviously, the staff and work with us as we really focused in on some of the things that you heard about, some of the staff injuries and the concerns that have surfaced up, and so a little bit of the history on that. This committee has been around for a number of years, but it's morphed over time, has been impacted by COVID, but usually was around just issues and concerns that would come from EMO to us as the district leadership and didn't progress. But then obviously under Dr. Heil's leadership, things have changed over the last few years, and it's really become this opportunity for us to really walk the walk around continuous improvement, that we're looking differently collaboratively at the systems that we use, how we're tracking, and you heard a little bit about the power of connecting back with staff when injuries occur. So some of that we're going to share with you, just sort of how that has evolved. Dr. Heil, if you wanted to add anything into this portion.
So at the beginning when we started the meeting, I remember the first meeting I was sitting in, and I was like, everybody's so angry. Why is everybody so angry? But then starting to understand really the need for transparency and being able to sit in whatever the data is, because we're all after the same thing, right? Our goal is not to have our staff hurt or harmed under our watch. So, and it was beautiful. We're going to steal it from Attendance Boundaries with Kay, a community-based solution of how we came together and the data that was needed. We started to go deeper and deeper into the data. And from that, we were able to focus in more in the area that was needed and how we can help in those situations. And it just has been an outstanding. We used to meet monthly, then it changed to bi-monthly, and canceled some that we didn't need. Yeah. But that collaboration with the MO has been incredible. So you can share more, Steve.
No, absolutely. So,
and Michelle Denard is there as well.
Michelle Denard sits on that team. We could probably go to that. Okay. As you can see, here are the individuals. So it's really grown. We had, obviously, Troy and Dave are part of that team. We have Anthony Patterns as part of the assistant soups. So as Dr. Heil said, it's become this opportunity for us to really listen, learn, and work together and collaborate. And you're going to hear a little bit about one of the more powerful things, and one of the things that we were going to ask Karenisha to speak to is just the way that we've come together around professional development and how we're supporting. And it's really been led. I want to compliment both Amy and Sunny for their work on this, because they really carried a lot of the weight in doing that. But it's really looking at our data systems, and collaborating around that so that we're kind of supporting and addressing where needs surface up. So I'm going to turn this, I think, over to Sunny, right?
Right, so I have the privilege of sharing some of the accomplishments of our district-wide and EMO safety committee. First and foremost, work that Amy has led around shifting reporting of student incidents in K-5 to Synergy. This allows for increased data validity and an increased ability for us to pull and disaggregate data in a way that we can make meaning out of, and then intervene or support where necessary. So that was a great accomplishment. We've also increased our emphasis to staff, to our ESPs and teachers specifically, around reporting of their injuries. So we had found early on that many staff didn't know how to make these reports, or what injuries constitute or met the criteria for a report, which is any injury. And so really supporting staff in that, and we had a large increase in staff's reporting of injuries, and so their understanding of how to use that system and to make sure that that information is getting where it needs to go.
You might be jumping in, Sunny. So
Yeah,
one of
please.
the things that we found out was secondary had more coherence around how to enter the information in the system. And then our K-5 was kind of hit and miss on how they were entering it. So just really going in to teach them how to do it correctly, specific people to do it. And then our data's not messy, so we got precise data to move on. So go ahead, Sunny.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Partnered with Tanisha in creating a professional development that her members were shared was necessary, and we were happy to respond and provide. And that was around this behavior management training, specifically after the suspension moratorium in first through third grade. So what other tools can we give teachers to replace, we're not taking away recess, we're not suspending students, we're trying to remove them from the classroom less. So what tools can we give teachers to respond to behaviors in their classroom successfully? So partnering with teachers in that, and also partnering with ESPs that are supporting our students in those classrooms. Almost half of our attendees at these trainings have been our ESPs. So some fancy full quotes from our from our participants at the end of our trainings. But we've had about 100 participants at each session, and we have a session coming up later this week where we'll be training more staff. We've moved it to the fall because of feedback that we've got from participants, but it'd be helpful to have the training now to support them in setting up their classroom in a way that's going to benefit students and meet students' social and emotional needs. And finally, we've developed a protocol for supporting buildings and building administrators when they're seeing an increase of staff injuries in their building related to student dysregulation. Specifically, when we have 3 or more injuries in one building in 1 week, then we will send that administrator a survey that provides them with some options for receiving support around those staff injuries. And how we can, as a district, support them in reducing those staff injuries. So that might be increasing some DBS supports, having a student services administrator come out and do some observations and collaboration, providing student-specific professional development or team-specific CPI training, or even getting more PPE, or personal protective equipment, out to the site, such as our bite guards, our shin guards, and different things that can keep our staff safe. So we appreciate our ongoing partnership with our principals. It's so nice in my position and to work with principals that know that behavior is communication. And it's never starting with the basics. It's a really talented group. It's been a privilege. So that is our...
Yeah, and I would just add again, I think part of what has evolved in the continuous improvement is for us to really take a hard look at how we're tracking the information in the systems that we have. And Dr. Heil talked a little bit about how we're changing what we're doing at our level. Not only so that we understand, but we can be more responsive, like Sunny talked about, and be able to target supports and do that. And also make sure that in that professional development, especially for our ESPs, we're being responsive, and we're really hoping and helping them provide some agency so that they feel like they have some tools and they're able to respond. And so That's going to continue to evolve, and we're looking forward to, you know, this ongoing collaboration with the EMO, and to really see where this goes. Questions?
And you had your cell phone questions.
Well, I think first I want to say thank you so much. I love kind of sessions like this because you can just really, like, you see the leadership that each of you have in your buildings and the heart that you have, and I just like hope people are listening so they can really hear that. And honestly, as a parent, I'm like, I'm kind of like taking a lot of notes here. Because I think it's hard for staff to, like, you know, sometimes like people do have things going on in their life. It's hard to come with your full self all the time, like in a good mood. And like I do that all the time with my where I'm like dysregulated myself, trying to also address some dysregulation in my kids. And I'm like, so thank you for your tips around what does your brain need right now? I'll be using that. I think just like, you know, I think my curiosity was just around, just given like, you know, like even like social media or access to like, you know, video and thing, having cell phones, and like it is, I think it's a great shift to go toward this. I'm just curious, I was just kind of more curious, and given all the security and just kind of the intent around in your buildings, like just the impact, or how are we addressing any concerns that maybe parents have around like, well, I want my student to have a cell phone because I'm worried about if there's an emergency, or I'm worried about this. So it's more of like, what's that communication? I'm very supportive of it. I was just curious, given the conversation tonight and the change in policy that we've had.
So when Maple Grove rolled this out last year, we counted up the minutes in the school day, not including before school when kids arrive or after school, and there's 55 minutes a day, including lunch and passing times in which students are permitted to use their phones. So we've always referred to that amount of time during the school day that kids are fully supported in being accessible to their families. If there ever is an emergency or there's some serious family information that is expected during the day, that's where we empower the students to communicate with their teachers. They get it. And it just that simple conversation or an email from the family to the teachers is a huge opportunity for them that to be worked out if those 55 minutes aren't enough.
I would just add, if you haven't had a chance to read the book, The Anxious Generation, highly recommend it. It just speaks to like together as a community, like cell phones and everything, they're not going away. We have to learn the impact it has on these young people's brains. Because I can tell you, since about 2010, it has been a whole different ballpark of just navigating behaviors and things that you would never imagine for little kids. But
even my oldest daughter, she's a junior, so she's 20. Even she looks at her sisters, or like who are like 9th and 8th grade, and she's like, "Mom, you have screen kids." Like she's not even, you know, you just realize like even how that progresses even in that short amount of time. And there's like a 6-year difference, you know. So yeah, totally.
That's preventative stuff. So I mean, you hear the impact, and that's a huge impact.
And we have a lot of conversations with the babies about what it's like after high school, what it's like having a career, what it's like, you know, becoming an adult and your responsibilities. When I communicate with my teachers, we talk about classroom management, and there's a classroom management tool to me, to where this is the expectations in my classroom. And so that is how we've been able to roll this out for this upcoming year. We've been talking about it for about a year and a half now with the kids. They know it's coming, they've gotten communication. We starting on day one, when school starts, phones go away, let's stay locked in, let's do what we have to do. So I'm excited about it because I think it's something that's needed, and it'll help our babies get what they need to do to be successful.
I remember, Patrick, when you rolled it out, and I was there's definitely a split in the room. Like some people are like, yeah, we're gonna excited about it, and then some parents were like, you know, so come a long way.
Well, and the first year we rolled it out, the only parent that was angry was the one that had to come pick up their child's phone. It was out of it. Other than that, and originally it was, I said no phones at all.
Yeah.
That's where the grumpiness came.
Yep.
But when we adjusted to being allowed to have phones in school, you just have them out, it relieved that stress of parents because then now they can physically have them out.
Yeah.
But it's a no-brainer.
Then hopefully all the things that, you know, you heard about earlier today, really, you know, obviously some we can't communicate directly, but to know that all the efforts and the things to harden the school and make it safe, because I know I've heard some of the parents concerned about getting to their child if there's an incident or something, but it really, you know, obviously with all the things that are happening and what also that can do to complicate the hard efforts and the things that have been really thoughtful in making sure that that whole place is safe. But I get it.
Yep.
So before this presentation, the top 3 things that I hear as a board member, which was all addressed in the conversation. Number 1, I hear most parents expressing concerns about their child being bullying and nothing's being done about it. So it's good to hear kind of the protocols that are in place. I was just looking at the handbook for my son though, and I see a lot about behaviors and expectations, but I see nothing to help me as a parent say, what do I do if my child's experiencing bullying? So maybe that comes through other forms, but I feel like maybe there's more opportunity for parents to understand this type of information, maybe not this type, but protocols, process, how they can maybe understand more, feel more secure that there are things being done. And then with that, if it's identified that a student's being bullied, and maybe it's not coming from the parent, but it happens at school, do you inform the parent that their child is experiencing bullying so that they can intervene and support their child?
Yes.
So you had nods.
So I'll speak to it first. From our perspective, I like to get the parents involved in those situations to have them communicate when it warrants, because it works out to where the parents are communicating. I will also say that for us, if we have a bullying situation, there is some information that we do send out to that parent to say, these are some topics you can have a conversation about, right? We got those, we utilize our social workers and counselors with that piece. So again, there is stuff there. I want to also address the possible comment of nothing may not is getting done for this situation. And I think what parents struggle with sometimes, if not all the time, is, you know, we do have those laws, we have those HIPAA laws, right? And there are certain things that we can discuss and certain things that we can't. So I think there's a balance there between what a parent may expect to get done versus what can actually happen or we can share. So it's just a fine line sometimes, and it makes it difficult. But I do understand the thought process behind it.
I think that might come back to the education where it's like, we have policies and we're following our policies.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what I usually respond or direct people to inquire about. The second other thing that I hear most about, which again I love that was touched on, was teachers indicating that there's a lack of support for them regarding behavior in the classroom. So it was good that you guys talked about that one, but that does seem to be a pervasive thing that I think a lot of us hear from too. So it does sound like there's a lot there. And I like hearing the consistency about incident reporting. I think having that data is going to be helpful too. And the last thing that I hear most about is ESP injuries. so that was also addressed. So just coming into this, like those are the big ones. I really appreciated that those things were proactively addressed. One, you know, I could talk all night and let's ask one more question. But how do you use data to assess progress at your sites?
So we use the My Savers. Savers, it's a student survey. That's one that's given 3 times a year now? 3 times a year? Okay, all right. 3 times a year. We take that data and meet with individual teams and to review it and talk through it so they can examine what's the feedback and what's happening from the students. We also break that down and disaggregate by language. That's I don't know if other schools do that. Language, race. I forgot all the other things we look at, but
Special services.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. So that's really good data. So to use, we also use our 2 other data points: behavior calls. So we track the behavior calls to our behavior team, and our actual office discipline referrals, which are now in Synergy, and then we can disaggregate that data as well. And if we're seeing themes across grade levels or with an individual teacher, we can go and have that conversation. Hey, what's happening? How can we support? This is what we're seeing, you know, or what do you see in this data? Tell me what's happening. Oftentimes, like last year, I had a second grade teacher, and if you looked at our data and our office discipline referrals, it was like she had herself for one student had like 150 referrals. And there was some good discussion on that, and what we came up with is that we provided additional ESP support for that student and that teacher, and then we also, the student eventually qualified for special services, but we did not take that general ed support away because that was not going to help that situation out. So, but it was, you know, looking at the data and responding to it in real time. So, yeah. And we also look at the academic data because you can bet that the students that are getting more ODRs are also not performing. I hate that word, performing, like they're not where we want them to be. So, yeah.
If I can just add another element that we're using as a district is street data, which is more of the qualitative measures. It's the vibe of it's listening to kids, hearing their perspective. It's really identifying kids who are maybe the most disenfranchised and hearing from their story. That data to me is some of the most powerful. It really helps shift. And when you hear from a kid about what's really going on, how can you not make a shift in what your practice is? So I think to me, that's a really, really important, powerful one that we do here.
At the high school, I look at every data point we can put our hands on. We communicate with our staff at the end of each trimester, specifically about grade data, and specifically about attendance, and specifically about behavior. We talk to them, we communicate with the teachers, they know where they are, they know where our babies are, and we are continuing to do that work on a regular basis, which has shown some great strides in my house. So.
Same, it's you were tracking patterns, since the topic is mostly about behavior. When a student comes on our radar and exhibits a pattern of behavior, oftentimes, nearly always times, there's a direct correlation with academic performance. So the point, in this case, whether it's an SNS or a counselor, case manager, social worker, they track that data and interventions we put in place over a short and longer term period. If they're on our tier 2 list and they're on our student assistance team, that's on a bi-weekly basis where you need to go over every single student and you're tracking. You're tracking how it's going and how the interventions and supports you put in place have hopefully had a positive impact, and if they haven't, why not, and what else can we do? Also partnering with the family and also listening to the student. The gem is when the student's able to convey what it is they need, and that's when you can really meet and forge a successful partnership. And ultimately, you want to turn the keys over to the student who learns to navigate those internal regulators and grow and blossom. It's a wonderful journey.
I've had a difficult child, so I can relate personally. Yeah.
No kids are difficult.
I've had to learn to reparent my child.
Isn't that mine?
Reparent myself for the, I don't know.
It's funny when you say that, though. I mean, I did, one of my 4 was very disruptive, right? So we got 3 calls from the elementary teacher in his kindergarten, first week of kindergarten. But what I appreciate was with, you know, the methods and everything you're using, like, those things that made school difficult for him are going to be a superpower in the future. And I know this because he's like exact same personality as my wife. Like, God bless her. I hope she's not listening to this. But I know that, you know, we got to protect that spirit, right? We can't crush it out of them. You know, I mean, we still want to nurture what is special about them, right?
Keep that passion.
Yeah, while helping them along the way. So I appreciate it.
That's true. The superpower, it's so true. Like every kind of behavior that comes out maybe sideways is a superpower that you just need to tap into it. Maybe we took the same class.
Yeah, Amy, I think this is actually one of my favorite work sessions. The panel format, the fact that it was so human-centric, it really felt like you all were very centered on each and every one of our scholars and staff members in this presentation, and so I appreciated that. I've seen firsthand the communication to parents when these situations come up, and from Maple Grove Senior just last year, where I got a phone call first thing in the morning and felt informed enough to be able to like follow up in the evening, but also felt like I had a clear plan as to how the school would handle that situation, and so also felt this sense of relief that everything was good. And so yeah, I appreciated this presentation and just all of the work that you do to make sure that the individual needs of each of our scholars is being met, and that they feel safe and that they feel like they belong in our school environments, even on their worst days. So, thank you all, and it was very clear, Ryan, that you have drank the Osseo Kool-Aid.
We're going to communicate with him when we leave. Yeah, we got it.
I did have a couple follow-up questions, and I wish we could have 2 more hours of this and we're not all tired at the end of the day, because it's such a great topic, and I think this is one of the biggest priorities for families in our district. And it was the main thing that I've heard over the last couple years is safety and kids feeling safe in the classroom. And so the main topics that bubbled up for me from people that I've talked to, ESPs and teachers that have brought situations to my attention, and I'm curious more about some of the victim support and like how do we, I've heard instances where a kid's getting bullied and the bully gets sent back into that same class, and so it's like double hurt. And so how do we help those students? And I know we're trying to help and ladder the bully up, but how do we help that victim not have to face that kind of pain every day? Because that won't happen overnight, correct? So how does that look, and what do we do in order to ensure some of the, and even like physical violence, how do we, and that I'm hearing more from the elementary level, unfortunately. What does that look like to help our ESPs feel safe? And even the EMO stats, I'd love to see the data that comes out of those meetings. Because I think we have a responsibility to protect our staff. And then how does what triggers partnering with or reaching out to parents? It's a really broad question. And is that standardized across the district? Because I think I hear a lot of instances of like, I didn't know, and whether it's a victim or the bully situation, it's like, I didn't know what was happening. And I know we have older kids that are 17, 18, but they're still kids and under somebody's supervision, no matter who that is. So how does that look? And I think that's where you optimize behavior changes when it's at home and in school. And then the reset versus consequences. And I totally hear this, the amygdala, the flipping the lid and the changing the thought pattern. But how do we help our kids understand too, like especially with violence and more, like I'm from urban California, and I'm curious how we can curb some of the violence in our schools with the model we have, and do we see that change trending with the new standards being set? So I guess I have a lot of rhetorical questions, and more like, do we see data to support the practices we're currently doing? And about data, like are we tracking kids that appear multiple times, like your 150-time kid? Like how do we support them, but also how are we making sure that people around them are being supported in that situation? Because we want to make sure kids are still getting a quality education. And after the pandemic, I've heard a lot of classrooms have felt very disruptive for teachers and for students. And then the standardized definition of when kids should be removed from class. Like what does that look like at an elementary, middle, and high school level? And whether it's like removed from class to go to a calming corner in the hallway, or even just in the classroom removed, is that standardized so that all of our scholars are getting the same behavior expectations across the district? And even then communicating that to parents. I feel like sometimes parents we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And so even if it's like, hey, this is what we do when X, Y, Z happens, parents then feel equipped to go, oh, okay, I understand that, and not like something's being hidden, which how it feels is what I've heard from kids that their parents whose kids have been bullied was the biggest thing. So yeah, those are just some questions I guess I would have for leadership more, not necessarily for you principals, but I'd love to hear your experience with some of those questions I brought up, because you guys are the front line, so.
I think just real quick for bullying, there is a process that our counselors are trained in, our social workers are trained in. So we have a situation that is actually a bullying incident because there is there's guidelines in a statute.
Yes, there
What,
is.
yeah, so I can't remember all of it right now, but the counselors and social workers are trained in that. And so we get them involved, and if they say, yep, this looks like there's been a pattern, it's been repeated, it's related to appearance, race, culture, different things like that. And then we start our process, okay? And part of that process, again, is definitely working with the student and the family of the student, I think.
Can I interrupt real quick,
yeah.
just to clarify?
Yeah.
So it does have to reach a certain threshold of like amount of instances, like it can't just be once, like being called a racial slur, because that's the incident I'm thinking of.
It can be
Okay.
one time,
Okay.
yeah, so, but that's, but again, it depends on the intensity of the incident, and so, yeah, so, yeah, good question. But we get our team involved, we do some follow-up with individual students, we actually do an investigation, get other statements, and then we put some things in place, and whether that is for the individual student, for the victim, and also for the classroom or any other bystanders that were involved, and because we want them to be, what's our language, upstanders, I think that's the, yeah, so we do some reteaching around that, and typically that works just because it's an intense process, and so typically, at least in my experience, the bullying stops. The only time it has not stopped is if there is a student with a significant disability, and it is very hard to navigate students with IEPs that are being the aggressor in a bullying situation, and what works, and then what's part of their disability, and that's just a conversation with the case manager, with student support services, and trying to figure out what's in that. I think Sunny talked about the behavior support plan. How can we adjust and modify that behavior support plan and keep the victim protected as well, right? And sometimes I'm a small school, so this is a big decision to make, but sometimes it is separating the student, and if I've done that, I always call the parent of the victim first and say, would you like a different class? And if they say yes, or if they say no, I don't want my child to be punished for being bullied, makes sense, then I will talk to the other parent and just say, this has been going on, this is a step we have to take to make sure everyone feels safe, and so.
So it is
So there's-
offered to the
so-
aggressor to move, it's kind of told then that you would need to move?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
definitely. So if
Thank
it
you.
comes to that level, and I think I've been at an Osseo, coming from the same district that Brian came from. I don't know, this is my 12th or 13th year, I'm losing track. I think maybe once or twice we've had to do that. So that's like really significant, repeated, ongoing situation. So we take bullying seriously. It is like Antoine, Dr. Harris was saying, that there are so many data privacy, and then if you have a student, a bully that's on an IEP, that student has a right to data, to their privacy, so we can't, be sharing all this information back and forth. But we do the best we can, and I think that from my experience in talking to my elementary colleagues in particular, we take bullying very seriously, and try to act on that when it comes to our attention. Sometimes it does not come because it's been happening on the playground. ESP thought recess ESPs thought they took care of it, but it's like, oh my God, this is like the fourth time. It's the fourth time, so then we get on.
Sure.
So yeah, so
That makes
yeah.
sense.
On a high school level, we communicate with both parties, and we spend time finding out the exact incident, when it happened, where it happened, and communicate with the students that are around. We do a full investigation, because sometimes there are situations to where they're poking back and forth at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm tired of playing now, right? And you keep going, and now you're bullying me. And so we make sure we communicate and find out everything. And one of the first things we also do is find out, are those students in the same class? That is with any situation we have, because we want to be able to communicate that and communicate that to parents. But I think what I've got back from many of my parents over the years, it's not that you haven't told me that you know about the situation, it's that you're not telling me what you're doing behind the scenes. And that's the work that we deal with in our jobs. And so it's always, can be, labeled as that, but and I'll let Bart go, but from a bullying standpoint, from a, conflict resolution standpoint, from in high school, we are focused on that daily to making sure our environments are where they need to be. And so I feel good about Park Center.
Ditto to every word. I'll just stress we inform the families. Dr. Heil herself 2 years ago stood right there and told all secondary principals, and no, all K-12 principals, parents are our partners. Parents are our partners. So we have a duty to inform families. There are students, but they're someone's kids. So and I will add the app Talking Points, which allows us to text, has been incredibly useful for very much a lot of the tier 1 behaviors. Because oftentimes, if it's the number, parents don't pick up. So a text is far more efficient to communicate that critical information, and then also allows that conversation to extend to the broader issues, especially in bullying. Powerful question is, what is it you need? Once we've completed the investigation, found out the whole scope, if it is true bullying and harassment, hearing from the student and the family, what is it you need? And then also from the students committing the behaviors, trying to overcome those behaviors and change their patterns, what do you need from us to help yourself make better decisions? And from there, we take those into account, and if it involves a schedule change, if possible, it does.
Which I appreciate you guys sharing that, because that was one of the things that I was wondering, is if they're allowed, if a victim is allowed to stay in their class and have the aggressor move.
And it is more common at the high school level, and in my experience, that the students do not want the schedule to change. And you just go with it. They don't make the decision, we do in the end, but after taking all the elements into play. We want the behavior to stop.
Thank you.
It was mentioned, but I would say the vast majority of incidents that I hear about is somebody reaching out that it hasn't really gone through the full escalation process, so when we kind of redirect it in. So I would say that's very rare that I've ever heard from somebody that by the time it reaches the principal level, that there is not resolution. So I think it's, continuing to strengthen the consistency, the incident reporting, I think to your point, like if something's happening in playground and it doesn't get through the system, like that's just so critical. So I see the work being on the board, the number of years I've been on at this point, like I see the progression and the change and the reinforcement, and it's really, really good to see. One last thought.
Can I just add something? You mentioned the ESPs and hearing a lot from the ESPs. One of the things that we try to do at Garden City is have a monthly ESP meeting, and I usually have a topic connected to what we're doing with the teachers, but I also have some open time for them to share their frustrations, and believe me, my team does share frustrations. So,
thanks to you as a leader.
But that also, goes to that, and we circle up sometimes different things like that to get the feedback from our ESPs. I do that with the teachers as well, but I think sometimes our ESPs can feel like their voice is not being heard, so I try to make an intentional effort to make sure I'm reaching out to our support staff and let them know they're just as valued as everybody else.
I know there's continued work at the start of the year on expectation setting, particular behavior, social emotional, parent engagement. Just personally for me, one of the things I always felt I had to do every single year was send a letter to the teacher when my son was young, like, these are the things that work. These are the things, don't do this, or this is gonna spin him up. So even we kind of had plans, to have a signal versus putting a spotlight on him if there was something taking place in class. So I just wonder if there's still more we can do to engage parents at the start of the year and really understand their child or the things that maybe everybody needs to know at the start of the year. So just a wondering.
That continues to happen even in high school.
Yeah, that's true,
Still
yeah.
get phone calls, right,
Yeah.
from parents. So we still partner in that aspect. So it works and it's there.
Okay, what was the name of that book? The Anxious?
Anxious Generation.
So one of the things that I don't understand it, my background is school social work, so I've always been able to talk to people. But one of the challenges that my young staff are facing, and I didn't realize it until they could talk with the students, but talking with the parent about a tough situation, they need a lot of coaching and guidance, and part of that is experience, and I also think part of that is they're so in tune to the technology and to, so it's easier to send a text. Well, in that situation, you probably should have sent a text. That's a phone call, so, and coaching and working with them through those things, so, but, we try to encourage our teachers and model to, hey, this is how you make a phone call, this is, hey, you want to go do a home visit with me to this family, to this house, so, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Do you have enough room? Sorry.
Yep, I got it, yep. I didn't know.
No, you're good. You're good.
So, board members, we are already over the time that we had allocated for this meeting. So we were going to propose to move the monitoring report to a future work session. That's the last sort of big item. So I just wanted to do a quick check-in to see where everyone's at, if you want to get through the last item or if you want to move it to a
I just want to
separate work
dedicate,
session.
like, that's such a big topic, and
I
I
don't
want to
wanna
make
rush
sure
through
we
it.
address it well.
But we'll do this one, the name.
I think so, yeah. I think it's short enough. Kay, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I can speak. Dr. Heil, Chair Prince and Vice Chair Brooks, members of the board, I'm so excited to be sharing more about the naming of the new elementary school with you. We're changing the vibe here a little bit. So, as you know from our groundbreaking event last spring, the new elementary school in Northwest Maple Grove is one of 66 Building a Better Future projects over a 4-year stretch. Our community support of a bond referendum in fall 2023 is making all of these projects possible. As shared then, rapid growth and development is happening in this corner of our district, which has caused growing pains in schools nearby. By building a new school in the geographical area that needs it, it reduces the number of students who need to move schools and to address those space shortages that we have. So this photo that you see on the screen was taken about 2 weeks ago over by Cindy Controls over there. Over the summer months, lots of groundwork has taken place, and just recently beams started to rise in the classroom sections along with a good portion of the rooms. So updates on the construction part of this building will continue to be shared at osceoschool.org/betterfuture. So as we turn to the name, it's important for the name of this new school to be reflective of our community's vision and values. We do this by inviting community members to take part in the naming process. This helps contribute to the school's identity and instills community pride. Additionally, this process follows the policy and procedures that we have in 811. Board members, you may recall hearing a short bit about the naming process in Dr. Heil's superintendent update late May. Since then, we've been establishing the timeline and content for rolling it out. August 4th, the wider community was first notified. We created a thought exchange, so that opened up. You may be seeing that around already. So we can start receiving name ideas already. We've gotten quite a bit, and I'll talk about those numbers here in a little bit. So today at this work session, we're just giving you a little bit more detail. On September 11th, the thought exchange will close. And then a representative group of district staff and community members will then meet to review all the submissions that came in, and they'll then make a recommendation or recommendations to Dr. Heil, and then she'll present a recommendation to you to vote on at the the September 23rd school board meeting. So if you or others would like to participate in the naming process, there's a QR code on the screen here, so you can either scan that in, or you can go to osceoschools.org/new elementary. Once you're there, there's a few on-screen questions. You just have to accept them and okay, and then you can start putting in your suggestion or suggestions that you might have. And then toward the end, we are asking people if they are going to be part of that group, that they can share some contact information there as well. Then, of course, if people have questions, or if they have, or they want to know more about the group, they can always email betterfuture@district279.org as well. You can also rate other ideas that are out there too, so we can kind of see like what's coming to the top. Right now, we've had 872 participants. We have almost 350 name submission ideas, and those have been rated 15,000 times.
Wow.
Jeez.
So, yeah. So like, we have some clear winners right now. I'm not going to share though. I have creative ideas coming.
It's actually 15,001.
Okay. So as we shared in the timeline, we want to make sure that all those ideas are coming in. We are wrapping those up by Thursday, September 11th though, so make sure if you're anxious to share those creative ideas, send them away. Like I said, we'll be meeting as a committee shortly thereafter to make sure we meet that September deadline that we have. So this is being shared out in a variety of ways. It's online, social media, newsletters. We're sharing this with schools now too, so they can start putting in their newsletters as well. We've done some text messages. Our Have You Heard postcard, which goes out to all community members, also have that in there in our latest August version. And then Principal Smith actually at the Night to Unite events had little handouts that he could share as he was connecting with families, and I know we plan to do that at the open house next Wednesday at Fernbrook as well. A lot of the students from Fernbrook will be moving over to the new elementary school next fall. And then media as well, we've let them know, and I know Press and News, our local newspaper, has covered this already. So future families, specifically students, we're also asked to provide ideas. So future families mean those that are that we have in our system already that we know are planned to go to the new elementary. We want those families specifically to be, and really students to be, providing ideas for a mascot. This mascot will help us head in a logo direction then. So logo ideas will be created, what families and students share, and then we will finalize ideas with future families, and then hopefully that will wrap up in October, November at the absolute latest though. So we will be having a new logo as well to go alongside with that name. So thanks for the opportunity to share. I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have. Again, if you have any questions though, or community members have questions, they can feel free to email betterfuture@district279.org or call the phone number 763-291-8990. Share away. Share those creative ideas.
So can I ask a quick question, if that's okay? So September 11th, you will have a final vote, or you'll just start to?
That's when we're going to start going through all the submissions that were shared.
Right, so if I wanted to make individual calls to board members to kind of let them, because you don't want to walk in on September 3rd, it's like 23rd, surprise.
Yeah, we'll do a connect. We'll see how that first meeting goes, but
Okay,
I would
okay.
say in the following days we can make the connection.
Okay,
and see
all
what
right,
we do.
thank you.
I think
Okay.
we're going to have we'll see how it goes. I'm going to leave it.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, any other questions?
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the fun part.
All right, our last item before adjournment is board calendar review. So Dr. Hill.
And we can, because that's constantly changing and shifting, so we just shifted Vision A, that'll go to September, so I'll send something out in superintendent update on how the shifts are going. We're not having a PD on September 16th, so you don't have to worry about that. And looking at October 28th, yeah, October 28th, looking at something for that instead. So it's a good calendar shift. I'm really liking it. If I can say that it's okay, because we're really getting everybody's input on what's needed, and how to get students involved in everything. So we have a good shift that's going on our calendar. So thank you.
And a reminder, if you have work session topics, we had sought to work some of them in that have been captured, so there's a link to that, or you can just email me or Thomas to add it on. And sometimes, like, maybe if it's a topic, maybe it'll be, we just need an update on it from the superintendent, or maybe the mechanism is email or something versus a work session, but we want to make sure that we get any questions or topics you have questions about or interest in addressed in some way.
And also looking at a couple of sites this year that we can have a work session at in one of our renovated sites. For sure, one will be Brooklyn Middle, then we'll probably find an elementary that just got their media center done as well, so we can go meet on site there.
Nice.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Have a good night.